Good evening, all right. The music's just a little bit off tonight, isn't it? Maybe it's my brain. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talks College Sports Huddle. How you guys doing tonight? Good to have you with me. We'll talk a lot of stuff. I want to welcome everybody tonight watching on TGI Sports Talks Facebook page, our YouTube page, the X page. You can catch this show later tonight at midnight on the Roku channel for national streaming sports. If you haven't downloaded that, please do so. We're also on Let's Talk Sports on their YouTube platform. And DDH, thumbs up. Speaking of Let's Talk Sports. Quick shout out to Ralph Williams at RW Media. Ralph with a big announcement today about his show, The Sports Corner, and some of his other content being on a local Pittsburgh TV show, which I'll share on. I don't have the details in front of me. So if Ralph comes on later, I'll let him share them in the comments. But he also a bunch of shows, and specifically the Sports Corner that he does every Tuesday with Smokin' Jim Frazier from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern time on Facebook and YouTube, and soon this TV outlet in Pittsburgh. And also a quick thank you to Harvey Williams, since it's I'll give a shout out to Harvey Williams, from former LSU standout, and also standout with the Kansas City Chiefs, and specifically the Oakland or LA Raiders, the Raiders. He was my guest on One-on-One with Keith Engle last Friday, and we had a great conversation. Check that out if you haven't seen it. It was a lot of fun. And I'll have Randy Lurch, former Major League Baseball pitcher with the Phillies, Brewers, and a bunch of other teams on Friday. Great story Randy's got to tell, by the way. In fact, I'll give a little shout out to him because I haven't had the book in front of me. We'll be talking about him and his book, which he talks about his trials and tribulations and his comeback in life, basically. Got in the bullpen, the Randy Lurch story. It's a big leader's battle with drug and alcohol addiction and cirrhosis. Randy's got a great story. Randy was a great prospect, and things kind of went off the rails a little bit. That was co-written, by the way, with Harold Lurch, who is no relation to Randy. Just talked to Randy on the phone today. He had a little fall, so he may look a little banged up Friday, but we'll have some fun tonight, guys. And I'll get to your comments here and your hellos in a second. We'll get into I want to get into talking some sports, right? We talk too much about NIL and paying for play and blah blah blah. And I'm guilty as everybody else, and it's part of the story. I'd rather get in tonight, and I've got a few things to kind of bring up if we don't have comments to bring them up. But what are we looking forward to in the 2024 season, right? We've got new rivalries getting started, some great matchups in the SEC, some great matchups in the Big Ten, a great Thanksgiving Saturday lineup, most likely, with Oklahoma, Michigan, Auburn, Alabama, and it looks like Texas and Texas A&M at night. Lots of things going on. ESPN with over 1,000 games live on their different, outlets. We'll talk about that. I want to talk about the College Football Hall of Fame nominees and why some of these great players are in, and why some people aren't even nominated, coaching-wise specifically. We'll look at the college baseball tournament and see where we are as far as I believe we're into the super regionals. We'll take a look at the brackets and who's still alive for Oklahoma, and we'll look at the softball as well, as they're starting to play the World Series portion of their games as well. So we'll get into all of that and your comments. Daniel Berry Sports, hello. Good to have you with us. Rick Sherlock's here. How you doing, Rick? Good to have you with us tonight. Listen, Georgia's, a great, I was looking at, speaking of looking forward, Georgia's got this year on their schedule. Where is that? I got to find this. I was reading this. Where is this? Nick Saban. There's a deal in here about Georgia. And their schedule this year is Georgia. After going 13-1 and just missing the college football playoff last year, we would think Kirby Smart's team is going to be out for blood this year, right? Carson Beck and the Dogs, though, have got to face, and this is using, I wanted to say Howie Mandel. It's Mandel from the Athletics rankings. They've got to face this year number 3 Texas, number 4 Alabama, number 6 Ole Miss. So they don't have it easy, and these are just preseason rankings, right? We're going to have teams that surprise in the SEC, I'm sure, as well. So Georgia's going to have their work cut out for them. Also in the SEC, you got Alabama, and without Nick Saban, it's going to be weird to see that team run out on that field without Nick Saban and have Kellen DeBoer on the sideline. So we'll see what the effect will be there. I know Mandel's moved them up in his latest preseason rankings, and maybe we'll take a look at that in a little bit. What were some of the other things we were talking about? Love to stay on some football tonight for a change, right? Or on the field stuff, whether it's the college baseball, the women's softball, basketball, but football. Some of the news, I talked about some of the Big Ten matchups and SEC matchups. And it appears that ESPN and Fox will probably be very happy because, we've got USC and Michigan September 21st, Michigan and Washington State on the 5th of October, Ohio State, Oregon on the 12th of October, Georgia, Texas on the 19th, Alabama, Oklahoma on the 23rd. And again, probably at least in the state of Texas, because we haven't had this matchup in a while, longtime rivals, Texas and Texas A&M on that Saturday after Thanksgiving. As I said, that looks like a day long of great matchups. You got Michigan, Ohio State at noon, Auburn, Alabama in that 3:30 window. Unfortunately, not on CBS, but ABC. And the Longhorns and the Aggies at night. You got the 12-team playoff. You may or may not be in favor of it, but this is going to be a season-long race, unlike any other in the history of this sport. Ohio State, great story. It's win or bust for this team. They've gone on a spending spree, if you will, in the transfer portal. But this is like going all in professional sports and bringing in a Kevin Durant or bringing in a Juan Soto or a Reggie Jackson for the Yankees back in the day. It's win or go home. And the pressure's on Ryan Day. Jim Harbaugh, what's Michigan going to look like? I mean, they lost not just their head coach, but 3/4 of their coaching staff. They lost a bunch of players. In Blake Corum, J.J. McCarthy. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. You got the Big 12, where there's no alpha. There's no alpha team, but you got 7 teams, 8 teams that could win or finish 7th. Leads to some exciting play, potentially. New quarterbacks in Tennessee, at USC, in Oklahoma. Kids, sophomores. You got a true freshman starting at Nebraska in Raiola. You got Dion year 2. You got the defiant Dabo still standing on his own saying, we don't bring the kids in from the transfer portal because they're not good enough to play at Clemson. I saw a comment to that was said, how good do you have to be 4-4 in the ACC? But those are some of the things that I'm excited about. They talked about Georgia. Those are some of the things on the field coming up that I'm really excited about. What are you excited about? We'll dive into these more if we have to. Chris F. Grave, good evening. Modesto Junior College has been a great provider for baseball players over its long history. Produced Ray Langford, who turns 57 today. Happy birthday to Ray Langford. One of the more underrated. He was a really good player in his prime. His prime maybe didn't last as long as some others, but Ray Langford was a very, as I said, he was if I remember correctly, he was kind of a 5-tool guy, while he had all of his tools functioning correctly. maybe that's a bad choice of words, but anyway, happy birthday to Ray Langford. Great point. So anyway, that's a lot of great stuff. I mean, think about some of the stuff we just talked about. I'm excited about all of that. Again, I do a lot of gloom and doom. I know that. And, I'm an old guy. I want my old football back. I'm not getting it. And I'm still going to complain. But I'm still interested in the product on the field. And if the product in the field can produce, and I still have a college football feel to Saturdays and Saturday night, well, then I'll get on board. Because I'm going to have to, or I'm going to get run over by the bus, right? So there's a lot to be excited about. That's just a little bit of it. If I'm a Notre Dame fan, I'm excited. I'm excited because I've got a new quarterback coming in Riley Leonard. I've got a lot of new blood at the offensive skill positions. I know people are still questioning Marcus Freeman. I know Rick will probably comment. He still doesn't trust the coach. Maybe rightly so, but it's not like this guy's come in and been, like, as I've said before, he came in here and he was Jerry Faust. I mean, the guy's won, he's won 19 games in 2 years. That's not Jerry Faust material. It's not even Herm Winningham material. Not even Charlie Weiss material. He's done well. So there's a lot to be excited about. Yes, the Pac-12 is gone. Sorry to see it go. The official end of the Pac-12 came with the end of the Pac-12 baseball tournament, baseball tournament. And that was sad, but it is what it is, and again, as I say, I know I talk a lot of doom and gloom and I'm not happy about where we're at, but this is where we're at. And I want to concentrate more on the play on the field, and we'll try to do that. Unfortunately, when you're in the downtime, like we are now in June and July, specifically, and there's not a lot going on the field, we tend to concentrate on what's going on off the field, and that isn't always a bright, shiny city on a hill. But we'll do our best to be more upbeat and be excited about what we might see on the field. I'm really excited to see what the SEC, even though I don't like the realignment, I don't like the super conferences, I'm excited to see what comes. There's going to be a lot of new rivalries. There'll be a lot of rivalries that nobody's going to care about, but there'll be a lot of fun matchups that we never got to see before. I mean, Alabama and Oklahoma have not played a ton in their history. You got a rivalry in Texas and Texas A&M that's being renewed after being huge for many years. We're going to see in USC exactly how far Lincoln Riley has fallen. The fact that they were 8-5 last year with Caleb Williams as their quarterback is a little scary. I mean, I know that we've got, I'm trying to think of the kid's name now. Oklahoma. I can't remember the kid's name. He played in the Holiday Bowl, played very well. It'll come to me at some point, but are they going to put up 40 points a game? And they're playing in the Big Ten now. And look at 8 wins will probably look like a successful season for USC next year. And again, big changes in the Big Ten. Oklahoma State, Ohio State's got to be the odds-on favorite with everything they've done here. But there's pressure on James Franklin. There's pressure on Sherrod Moore. The cupboard is bare, and they don't have it easy schedule-wise either. I mean, they've got to play a tough schedule, not just Ohio State, Penn State. They've got Washington. I think they go to Washington to play them. It's going to be interesting to see what happens here. I think there's teams that we may not even be talking about. Miami could be a surprise this year. Again, Homer, I get it. Tennessee might be a team to keep an eye on this year with their sophomore starter. Kansas State, new blood, and a great coach in Kleiman. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. Who now? Yes, Oklahoma and the SEC, Alan. Good evening, Alan. Good to have you with us. Oklahoma gets Alabama this year. Going to be interesting. I don't expect Oklahoma to have a great season in year one, the SEC. I'm sorry, Alan. You got a new quarterback who played well in his bowl game. I believe what's his name? Jackson Arnold. Is that right? Hopefully I got that name right. We know Dylan Gabriel that took the money and ran to Oregon. Another great story. Is he going to be this year's Bo Nix or Michael Penix up there in the great Northwest? I'm interested, Alan, in your take. So we've been talking about, I've talked about so much negative stuff for months now, doom and gloom in amateur sports and college football specifically. And I want to concentrate for a while, at least tonight. What are we excited about for 2024? Your team is going to a brand new conference, probably the best conference in football. I mean, yeah, Big Ten might put up a fight, but what are you excited to see, guys? What excites you about the 2024 season? I'm excited about the 12-team playoff to see how this all plays out, to see what controversies are created now. I mean, we said if we had a 14 playoff, we'd be fine. Actually, you go back in the history of college, right? Go back to when, before 1970, they picked the national championship before the bowl games. Actually, one wire service did, one didn't. It was the AP and the UPI at the time. One picked their national championship before, one picked it after. You often had a split champion. Then we at least started naming the champions after the bowl season, but we rarely got number one versus two. So we had all kinds of, subjective opinions on who actually won. Right. I remember, I think it was 1982 when Miami Hurricanes won their first national championship. They came from 4-1. Auburn in the middle, I think they were sitting 2 or 3. I don't remember which one, but they settled for a tie in the Sugar Bowl. That wouldn't happen today, but they might have been the national championship, but it wouldn't have been settled on the field. So we wanted to settle on a field, and then we came into the BCS era where computers were heavily involved, and that didn't satisfy us. And we said, well, what we need is a 14 playoff. But that didn't satisfy us because we had these 2 or 3 teams that felt like they should have been in. So now we've got a 12-team playoff. It's going to be interesting to see what controversies come from that. XFL is not a UF. I don't have any clue. Are these leagues just stepping stone for prospects trying to get to the NFL? Yes. They're not making any money. And again, I don't want to concentrate too much on that, Chris, because I want to concentrate on the college world. But yeah, I mean, well, I guess in the fact that I guess it could be competition. These kids in college, and again, I don't want to go down a negative road. The good college players are making more money than these guys are making in the UFL. The USFL, the UFL, there's another league too, the AAFL or something. Is it a stepping stone? Not for most of them. Most of these kids are not making the NFL. But it gives them somewhere to play and maybe tone their game. Maybe somebody sees them. But again, other than that, what's it good for? There's nobody watching it. You don't have big TV contracts. There's nobody in the stands. Good evening, Dave Guyette. What are you excited about, Dave? I mean, you still got Syracuse buried in the ACC. The ACC really is kind of the ugly stepchild right now of the Power Five, fairly or unfairly. Syracuse has struggled with a brand new coach this year, though. Who the heck is it? His name is escaping me at the moment. Was the secondary coach at maybe I better put this in alphabetical order so I can more easily see who I'm looking for. He was Georgia's, I believe, secondary coach. He's got a lot of excitement going on in Syracuse right now. We'll see whether they can make a little bit of some noise in the ACC this year. Where the heck is he? There, Fran Brown. I knew his name was Brown. I just couldn't come up with the first name. So I asked Alan about his excitement, and if this really worries me when the first 5 words are, this might be my homerism talking, but I see, oh, come on, at best 10-2 and at worst 8-5 for Oklahoma. The one matchup I really don't like going to Death Valley at the end of the year. You got Clemson at the end of the year? Let me check this out. What's the best way for me to do this? Hold on one second. Let me get to. I wonder if my standings even have I think I still got last year's. Yeah, they still have last year's up here. So I'm going to have to go to the Big 12. Let me check out your schedule, and I'll give you we'll do a lot of this going forward here. Oklahoma. 2024 schedule versus Temple. That's a win. Houston at home should be a win. Not a lock. Tulane should be a win. 3-0. I think you're going to lose to Tennessee. 3-1. At Auburn, Auburn's going to be improved this year under Hugh Freeze. They made some leaps forward at the end of last season. I'm going to have you lose in that game. Sorry. What's that? 3-2? 1, 2, 3. 3-1. 3-2. Texas is a loss. That's 3-3. South Carolina, I'll give you a win. 4-3. Ole Miss, you're going to lose to. 4-4. Maine, you're going to lose to. I'm kidding. Maine, you're going to beat. 5-4. You're going to lose at Missouri, too. Missouri's a good team. That's 5-5. Alabama at home. Oh, Death Valley. I'm sorry, LSU. I got the other. I got the wrong Death Valley. Alan, I see this team 6-6. Now, you could argue with me, I guess, on the Auburn and Tennessee games. Maybe they split those and they go 7-5. I don't think they're winning both those games. Tennessee'd be a better shot, I think, because they got them at home. And I'm not sold on Brent Venable yet. I'm just not. And it hurts. I mean, I know you got a good Jackson Arnold, right? Is a sophomore quarterback. Not having Dylan Gabriel back hurts this team. I think with Dylan Gabriel, I would have given this team a better chance to be. I don't see 10-2. I mean, where are you getting 10 wins on this schedule, man? I just can't see it. I guess, again, anything can happen. And if Arnold steps up, if Brent Venable really settles into his role, I mean, he went 6-6 with a better team than this one 2 years ago, in my mind. I'm intrigued by the Big 12 as well, seeing what team steps up. I don't know if anybody will. That's the thing. The Big 12, Alan, that's still your neck of the woods, right? So I'm assuming you'll pay attention to that, even though Oklahoma's not there anymore. I mean, you've got 7 teams that could finish anywhere from 1st to 7th in my mind. There's no alpha. I said this at the top, Alan. You probably weren't with me. But I don't think there's any alpha team in that league. Who's going to stand out and run away there? I don't think anybody. I do think maybe Oklahoma. See, here's the teams I think can win. Coming in, I think Arizona's going to have some problems losing their coach, Jed Fish, and some players went to Washington with him. And I think their offensive coordinator stepped up to be head coach. Arizona State's not ready to compete in that league. Deion and Colorado's not ready to compete in that league. But Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy, definitely a chance. Iowa State, And Matt Campbell, I know Matt Campbell may be overrated, man. He comes up with every big job that opens, but Oklahoma State has had a very good year in a handful of years now. But they're a contender. Kansas State. Texas Tech, I think, is a contender. West Virginia maybe is a contender. That's 5. Kansas is 6. And then probably somebody from TCU or UCF or somebody might be a surprise. But any of those teams could win. And any of those teams could finish 7th in this conference. I would expect somebody from UCF, TCU, Houston, and BYU to make a leap. I think Baylor is probably staying near the bottom. I think Cincinnati's probably staying near the bottom. And I think Dave Aranda at Baylor is in big trouble, by the way. Samuel Dean, how are you? I don't know about pathetic 12. Come on. Do you think that's worse than the ACC? Certainly respect your opinion, Samuel, but I mean, there's something to be said. And again, they're not the SEC, and they know it. By the way, these teams each got, we talk about revenue and all what all these schools are getting. These schools each got not the 3 newcomers, but I don't have it. We don't have it here. Yeah, they shared a record $470 million in revenue distribution last year from TV and some other similar ventures. I want to say $398 million will be split again amongst the 10 schools that weren't the newcomers last year. They each get $18 million. So that's about $40 million, which is not terrible. It's not 60 like the Big Ten teams, but that's pretty good money. And I do think this is going to be, again, I'm not telling you there's going to be a national champion come from here, Samuel, but I'm going to tell you it's going to be a competitive league. That's my point. And I think it'll be an entertaining league as well. I am excellent. Thank you, Samuel. And I respect everybody's opinion here. That's one thing to always remember. I may beat you up about it, but everybody's opinion is worth hearing, and I will debate it, and we part friends. Sometimes I'm right. I will tell you when I'm wrong. If this league falls on its face and is terrible next year, I'll remind you that I said, boy, I thought this was going to be a fun league. I'll tell you what, Deion's not going to be the focal point in Colorado, or not going to be the focal point that they were last year. But I think this team will be expected to do better, and I'm not sure why. When they turned over, again, 60 plus, almost 70 players, not just because they wanted to either, because they left of their own volition, a lot of these kids. And Deion still has yet to visit a recruit. I got a feeling Colorado could have a worse season than last year, although, they'll probably do okay because they get to play Cincinnati and they get to play Baylor, who's not very good, and they get to play Arizona State. So, 4 wins might be good again for Colorado. Big 12 title game. I forgot about Utah, by the way. I didn't even throw them in my they're the one newcomer that's got a shot at this title. I threw that out there. I'm going to take, just because we're talking about this, and it's a little early, but my early projection, I would say Utah's a good pick. Kyle Whittingham is one of the most underrated coaches in NCAA football. He does a good year. He does a good job year in and year out. His teams battle no matter what. They're down last year, but with Cam Rising coming back to play quarterback, I do think Utah's got a shot here. I'm going to take Utah and my boy Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State right now. So we're half in agreement here. Samuel Dean. Samuel. I don't have to say your whole name every time, do I? Until proven otherwise, the SEC, I think, will continue to reign. I don't disagree. I think the Big Ten will give them a little bit of competition. but with Michigan probably falling off a little bit, Penn State and James Franklin never to get able to get over the top. I don't doubt. You're right. A nice change of pace to not have Georgia and Alabama in the national championship, but until they are out consistently, it's SEC forever. Again, Georgia, don't forget, 13-1 last year. Those teams would both be in the playoff if there was 12 teams last year, and they'll likely Georgia will. Well, let me stop myself. In a 12-team playoff where 5 spots are already accounted for, I think it's possible the SEC gets 3 of those remaining at-large bids. Maybe more. What do we got? So we got the ACC, we got the Big 10, Big 12, SEC, and the winner of the number 1 ranked team of the group of 5, right? There's 5 slots. You got 7 left. You got 7 left. Let me just go to, I'm going to go to Mandel's top 25 here. Bear with me 1 second. So let's just say Georgia wins the SEC. I'm going to say Texas, just for argument's sake. Texas wins the SEC. I think Georgia gets in. I think Ole Miss gets in. I think Alabama will have a case to get in. Then you're going to have teams like Missouri. If Allen is anywhere near right, Oklahoma could be in the mix, where I think Oklahoma's going to be 7-5, 6-6. I really do. Who else could be in play there? Texas A&M, a lot of talent, new coach. I think Notre Dame makes the party. See, is there anybody else from the SEC I'm forgetting? Tennessee's going to be a contender. 3 or 4 at-large bids from the SEC, I think, this coming year. LSU. Sorry, I just saw James Martin. I'll say hi to you in a second, James. I'll say it now and put your comment up in a second. LSU. You're going to have 6 teams. Besides whoever wins, you're going to have another 5 or 6 teams competing for 3 or 4 spots probably. Maybe more. Maybe 5. I don't know. So that's why I see excitement here and controversy, because again, we're never going to be happy. Whatever playoff system we come up with, we're never going to be happy. And for those of you who just joined us, I'm trying to concentrate on football on the field. What are we excited about seeing and on the field? And right now we're talking about the 12-team playoff, but it could be anything. What are you excited about seeing in 2024? I don't want to talk about NIL. I don't want to talk about realignment. I don't want to talk about pay for play. Gosh, and again, I'm the worst offender because I focus too much on these things. You have to, especially in the off season. But listen, Samuel, Vols could be interesting this year. Freshman quarterback, if he steps up, you might catch lightning in a bottle. You almost caught it a few years ago. It's played any kind of defense, man. You guys were that close. I like Josh Heupel a lot. Again, I think Tennessee will be one of those teams that at the end of the year will be in the conversation for one of those 7 at-large bids. I mean, think about it. Where are they going to come from? I'm going to say Notre Dame's going to get one of them, right? That leaves 6. I don't think it's a lock. And then we'll say the second best team in the Big 10, right? There's 7. Got 5 more teams. Is it a lock that the second place team in the ACC gets in? No. Is it a lock that the second place team in the Big 12 gets in? No. It leaves the door open. I guess 5 is a max. Forget about the SEC for a second. Any league could probably get, unless Notre Dame falls out of the picture. I don't think they will. There's my guy, James Martin. Can't get your comment up here. Good to have you with us tonight, James. I was with James on the National Streaming Sports show earlier this evening. We had a couple of nice debates there. James, a big LSU fan. I hope you caught the Harvey Williams interview last week, James. And if you haven't yet, please check it out. I think you'll like it. I know you had told me Harvey was one of your favorites. We had a fun hour chatting with Harvey. It was a lot of fun. We might even have him on again. He was so much fun. So, no, I did kind of, until I saw you, I was sleeping a little bit on LSU. It's getting confusing, right? Because I'm on the ESPN conference standing page, and they're still from last year. So, I was kind of looking at what was there and who should be in there, and I'm not sleeping on LSU. LSU will be one of those kids. I don't think they're making the playoff. I think the teams from the SEC, because I'm going to say again, you got those 5 automatic bids. I think Notre Dame is in, and I'm going to give the second place team in the Big Ten one. That's 7. I think there'll be another team that'll sneak in there. Second place in the ACC, second place in the Big 12, somewhere. That'll give the 4 bids to that could possibly give 4 more bids to the SEC. LSU will contend. Whoever doesn't win, one of them is going to win. One of these teams is going to win the conference, and they won't be one of the 4. They'll already be in. Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama, Texas, Missouri, LSU. That's 6 teams, maybe for 4 spots. Maybe. I'm going to say right now, Ole Miss. Well, Texas or Georgia wins. The loser is in as well. Ole Miss, Missouri, and Alabama. I like Kellen DeBoer. It's not easy following the GOAT. I think Kellen DeBoer might be built for this, though. He came into a horrible situation in Washington. Horrible. He leaves behind almost as bad a situation for Jed Finch. But Kellen DeBoer took over a horrible situation in Washington, got himself to a national championship game in 3 years. I think he's built for the Alabama job. Not everybody can do this. Not everybody could follow Bear Bryant. Took a lot of coaches to get to Nick Saban. If Tennessee makes the playoff, Sam will have Rocky Top playing on repeat. They're content. Listen, they could catch lightning in a bottle. That league is so good this year. Now, the question is going to be, do they beat themselves up too much? And if that happens, you know, the records deflate. Teams could be really good. The records get worse, and some team in a lesser conference finishes second, with a better record than the 5th place team who's better in the SEC. They finished with 1 loss in the Big Ten. The 2nd and 3rd place teams could finish with 1 loss. And you could have a 4-loss team in the SEC that's better than them. It's possible. James, excited. There's a lot of parity, but in a good way, I think. I'm not a big fan of parity in sports, James. I think it's okay to have really good teams and really bad teams. What I don't want is a bunch of really mediocre teams, and that's what parity normally gives us. You see it in the NFL today. Too many, 9 and 8 teams fighting for playoff spots. But that's what these leagues want. I don't want to see that. But I think the SEC is a different kind of parity. It's a lot of really good teams. The bottom is going to be the bottom. Vanderbilt's not going to win any games. That's okay. They'll get pushed out eventually anyway. I promised I wouldn't do that. Concentrating on the field tonight. I'm glad you saw it. I thought you'd like that interview. I had a lot of fun with Harvey, and he was really a good sport. After we After he signed, I signed off, he stayed on for a few minutes and we chatted, and his wife popped her head in because I was joking during the show that she had put a comment up, what a hot guy. And I was embarrassed because nobody called me a hot guy before during the show, or ever, actually. So, but again, she was obviously talking about Harvey. So we had a good laugh about that after the show. We were chatting. The SEC could cannibalize itself. That's one concern. I guess if they were not to get 4 teams in, James, it could very well be because they cannibalize themselves. And as I said, a team with 4 losses might be better than a team that gets in with 1 or 2 losses. And again, I wish John DeLon was here, your fellow LSU fanatic, and he's a self-avowed SEC elitist. He likes the moniker, by the way. I'm not labeling you that, James, because I don't use it as in a positive vein, but he likes the moniker. He relishes it even. But again, he's against this 12-team playoff, but the SEC, because he doesn't want to see 3 and 4 loss teams in there. And I don't think you will unless they're SEC teams. You're not going to see a 4-loss team. I guess you could. I guess a group of 5 could produce a 3 or 4 loss champion. I suppose it's possible. But if I look back over the last, again, I'm only going from memory. If I look back over the last 6 or 7 years, my guess is going to be that none of those highest ranked group of 5 teams would have had more than 2 losses, maybe only 1. So it's ironic that, he feels it's become a participation, as many people have. I don't think it's a participation trophy tournament, but it's ironic that the teams he's worried about having 3 or 4 losses are likely to come from the SEC. That's just a fact. Ralph Williams, I mentioned earlier. Good evening, Ralph. Good to have you with us. I mentioned Ralph earlier, RW Media out of Pittsburgh. He does a lot of great stuff, including the Sports Corner, Tuesdays 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern with Spoken Jim Frazier. Ralph, if you want, I saw that, and I didn't have the details to put up, and I will share you had a post, I think. I didn't want to put it on my personal page, but I can. I wanting to get TGI Sports Talk. I'll put it to both, but share the details of your new TV deal there in Pittsburgh. And congratulations on that, by the way. No more divisions anywhere, I don't think, Alan. I don't think. Well, I guess. Trying to think. The ACC has done away with divisions. Big 12 didn't have divisions. The SEC does not have divisions. I think somebody can correct me. I think the Big 10 is keeping the 2-division format, at least for this year. I'm not positive. But it'd be something interesting. I think I find it very unlikely as well. It depends. Again, if the only way it could happen, James, to me, again, a 4-loss team could only come if the best league, and we will call it the SEC until proven different, does cannibalize itself, as you mentioned, and you've got a 4-loss team that is viewed much better than some 2-loss team in the Big 12 or the ACC or the Big 10. That's the only way it could happen. It's unlikely. I mean, you could have 4 teams with 2 losses, right? And from the SEC. And again, I'm not saying it's likely that happens, but if it were to happen, I think the only way it could happen is to an SEC team. What other league, what other league could get a team in with an at-large bid with 4 losses? I think the SEC could probably do it if it were to happen. Anyway, who is? Let's take a look at. want to take a look since I got it up. There's Mandel's new top 25 early. He's got Georgia 1 over Ohio State. Ohio State got a ton of pressure on him, man. Ton of pressure. Georgia's got a tough schedule, as we talked about earlier. Texas, LSU, Alabama. Let's take a look. I don't know if Rick's still with us, since we're looking at some schedules here. In fact, our fans that are here of these teams will look at them. If Rick's still here, we're going to look at Georgia right now. And we'll look at LSU's schedule too. I did it with Allen. I came up 7-5, best case for Oklahoma. 6-6, more likely for me. I think the Georgia. They got Clemson. I didn't even mention Clemson. They opened with Clemson on August 31st. That's at home. They're going to win. Dabo's got a lot of pressure on him this year. As I said, he said recently again that the reason they are not active in the transfer portal is none of those kids are good enough to play at Clemson. He was 4-4 in the ACC last year. Those kids, how good do they have to be go 4-4? Dabo needs to win big this year. Let's see. So here's Georgia's schedule. Clemson, I'll give them a win. Texas Tech's a win. Kentucky will be a win. Mike Stoops, one of my favorite coaches. Careful going to Kentucky, but it's a win. At Alabama, I'm going to say in Kellen DeBoer's first face-off, Georgia wins 4-0. They beat Auburn 5-0. Mississippi State 6-0. At Texas, lost 6-1. Florida's got a monster schedule, by the way. That's a win, 7-1. Ole Miss, at Ole Miss, 7-2. I'm sorry, that's probably 8-2. UMass win 9-2. Georgia Tech 10-2. I got 10-2. What do we got here? We can certainly we'll get into your LSU team in a second. I may change my tune before the season starts. It's June. Texas, Oklahoma joined the SEC has made that conference much more competitive and harder to get to the playoff unless you win out or lose 1 to 2 games. Again, I don't disagree, but again, you could have 4 teams with 2 losses, 4 or 5 teams with 2 losses. I think the SEC has an easier road to getting 4 teams in this playoff than anybody, maybe 5. Again, it all depends on, if there's a strong second place team elsewhere. There will be in the Big Ten. I already gave them at least 1 at large. I gave Notre Dame 1 at large. And I think I said we'll figure somebody surprises us somewhere in the Big 12 or the ACC, and they get an at large. I don't think both the ACC and the Big 12 will get an at large, though. I think one or the other, somebody will step up. Thought I saw that. I just realized Georgia doesn't play LSU this year. I apologize. I said they play LSU. They do not. So again, to make an argument for a team to get 3 or 4 teams in this tournament, the SEC is the only one with that type of opportunity. Georgia had many underclass players and will be better this year. Well, they're 13-1 last year, so they weren't too bad, right? Carson Beck will be better. They're going to miss Brett. And again, I know Bauer missed a lot of games, but they're going to miss his presence. They do have they're the Alabama of today. You have to beat them on the field. I can sit here and say they'll be 10-2 all I want, and that they'll lose at where did I say they'd lose? At Texas. I've got them losing at Texas, which is not an upset. And I have them losing at Ole Miss because I think Ole Miss is that good this year. Jackson Dart back for another year. Lane Kiffin is the king of the transfer portal. Now you got to do it on the field, and they've had good teams in the past and have not gotten over the top. Defense has held them back. Jackson Dart's come up small in some big games. That's why we play the games. That's why I'm excited. That's why tonight I'm not talking about anything but on the field. Let's take a look at LSU. See if I can piss James off. I wish John DeLon were here while I do this. See how many lost? Like, no, I'll be fair. I find it interesting, that I still find Anthony Coach Kelly was floating his name, and John DeLon says it's not true, and he's closer to the situation than me, but I saw a lot of sources saying Kelly was floating his name for that Michigan job. So I'm just saying. South Carolina out of the gate, or is that USC? Which USC is that? I gotta believe that's South Carolina, right? No, that's USC. That's right. USC. I forgot about that. First game of the year for the Tigers. Going to be an interesting test. At home, you win. This team is not putting up 40 points a game like they did under Caleb Williams. The quarterback's name's still escaping me. He'll be capable. The defense will be better. 8-5 this year for Lincoln Riley will be very good. That's a win for LSU. Nichols is a win. South Carolina, going to probably stake it. I like Shane Beamer a lot, but replacing Rattler is going to be difficult. This team took a step back last year. It's going to be a tough year for South Carolina. UCLA, another interesting matchup with first-year coach Deshaun Foster. That's at home. That'll be a win for South Alabama, 5. Ole Miss, you got them in Death Valley, but I like Ole Miss. 5-1. Arkansas is a win. 6-2. 6-1. At Texas A&M. I'm going to give it to you. 7-1. Alabama, I'm going to give you a loss there, James. 7-2. Florida's a win. 8-2. Vanderbilt, win. Oklahoma, win. 10-2. That's a pretty good year. Jaden Daniels was a quarterback. I knew. It's taking over the talent. Just keeps pouring in. But LSU has a great 5-star class in 25 coming, producing 2 Heisman quarterbacks in the past 5 years, is helping with recruiting. USC is a dub. I agree. Lincoln Riley, I think, is Lincoln Riley, Ryan Day, Caleb DeBoer a little bit, but I think Caleb DeBoer is built to handle what he's going into there in Alabama. These guys are under the most pressure of any coaches in the country this year, in my mind. And I like Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is going to come in there and beat you. I really do. I got 2 losses. That's pretty good. I mean, you could make an argument for 11-1. I find it hard to believe this team can go worse than 10-2. Maybe, I guess I gave you a win at Texas A&M. That could be a loss. 9-3 is a possibility. I think 10-2 looks good. Well, I don't know. They've had a decent spring. Alabama has in the transfer portal. I think Caleb DeBoer is built for this. They have lost a lot, and I think by the time they play, they don't play until November. I think if they played Alabama in September, I might give you that game. And again, you're playing them at home. You got a very good chance to win the game. This is not a pushover. But I got to give you 2 losses. This team's not you really think this team is an 11-1 team? I don't. we'll see. I mean, I suppose it's possible you could beat Alabama at home and then lose to Texas A&M on the road. So I don't know if Samuel's still with us. Samuel's still with us. We'll go through. What do you got? We'll see. We will. That's why we got to play the games, man. I think Bama is going to be a very interesting study this year. That's, again, one of the things I'm excited about. How is this team going to do when they run out of that tunnel with Caleb DeBoer and not Nick Saban? It's just again, there's a lot of. I'm getting myself pumped up after months of beating myself down and beating the game down myself. I've been very negative about college football. I know I have. I'm not apologizing for it. I feel what I feel. If the game on the field still feels like there's more excitement on Saturday than there is on Sunday, I'll find a way to get rid of the rest of my angst. But if I start feeling like I'm watching just another set of professional players, and again, I don't want to get there, right? I'm trying to stay positive. I'm trying to focus on the field. I want to get pumped up. I'm pumped up about what Alabama will look like post Nick Saban. I'm pumping myself up what these new rivalries will look like in the SEC and the Big 12, Big 10, excuse me. I'm excited about the parity, for to use James' term, in the Big 12. 7 teams can win that league in my mind. Now, they could finish first or they could finish 7th. All 7 of those teams. I think it's going to be a very exciting league as well. Don't know that there's going to be a second place team good enough to take as an at-large team to the playoff, though. It's a lot of things to get excited about. Yeah, there's a lot of downers. I'm not going there tonight. No, I suggest that we get to the SEC championship and then lose and turn out a 10-2 season. Where you got 12 regular season games. No? Am I wrong? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You got 12 regular season games, so you can't. So you'd have to have yourself, you're going to lose in the SEC championship game. So it's going to be a 10-3 season. Or an 11-2 season, one or the other. I see. So you got 11 regular season wins. Gotcha. I didn't read the last part. Interesting that you have yourself losing Ole Miss. I thought you'd have that as a win. I know you obviously like Ole Miss. I do a lot. Just, again, one of the great stories. Can Lane Kiffin and Jackson Dart, for that matter, finally get over the hump against Georgia and the Alabamas? I mean, you could see LSU and Ole Miss in a championship game, I suppose. I think you're going to see both teams in the championship game have at least one loss. One of them could have 2. So again, there's a 3-loss team getting in. Think about it, James. Very realistic that a 2-loss team in the SEC gets to the SEC championship game. If they lose, the SEC runner-up's got a very good chance of being an at-large. I would think a better than very good chance of being an at-large team. So you got a 3-loss team right there, which is kind of what I'm talking about, I guess. Lane Kiffin is a brilliant offensive mind. Defense has held him back. He's the king of the transfer portal. Jackson Dart's got 2 years running this team under his belt. He played great last year, but his worst games were against Georgia and against Alabama, and maybe in the bowl game, although they won. sometimes you got to get over that hump. Just like we were talking about the Cowboys earlier, and I don't want to go off on an NFL rant. I didn't get a chance to chime in there too much, but when you're 12-4 every year, you're a contender for the Super Bowl. You're getting a chance to play. That's why I couldn't get on board with CJ comparing them to the Jets and the Panthers and even my Patriots. You're 12-5 every year. Sorry, 12-5. You've got a chance every year. That's all you can ask for is a chance. They haven't got over the hump. Lane Kiffin's kind of the Cowboys of the SEC. Fun stuff. Man, this is why we watch the games. What else is going up? USC, I talked about. I think USC is going to be 8-5 is going to be or 8-4 regular season, 7-5 regular season, I guess, and a bowl win would be good for Lincoln Riley this year. Maybe. How's this team going to be better? He finished 8-5 with Caleb Williams as a quarterback. A bloom might be off Lincoln Riley's rose. DJU going to Florida State, another interesting topic to watch as we go into 2024 season. Transfers for the second time. Going to get to play against, I think, at home. I think on the road. Not really sure. We're going to get to see him play against Clemson, where he was just never accepted as the quarterback there when he came in to replace Lawrence. But he went to Oregon State, got off to a pretty good start last year, and then kind of faded. But I think he was like the 44th, 45th ranked passer in the NCAA, and he's replacing Jordan Travis, who was like the 24th or 5th best. So is quarterback play taking a step back at Florida State? Is Florida State going to take a step back, or are they going to push Clemson again this year in the ACC? Is Louisville going to be as good? Can Dabo back up his swagger? He needs to win big if he wants to prove that, nobody in the transfer portal is good enough to play at Clemson. Well, I'm not sure if he is overrated. He's overrated now. I don't know that he's always been overrated. I mean, the guy won with some suspect Oklahoma teams. Those defenses were never much better than what he's got at USC. He's produced some great quarterbacks. But overall, as a college football coach, yeah, he's overrated. And I think he's under a lot of pressure this year. He might get a pass. He might get a pass this year. But it's going to be one. He's going to get one mulligan. And maybe last year was his mulligan. You go 8-5 with Caleb Williams, that's a bad job. And now he's going into a tougher league. And again, I stuck up for the Pac-12. Pac-12 had some good teams last year. By the end of the season, it was a little more ragged than when it looked like early and midseason. But I can't see how he's finishing better than 8-5 this year. Let me take a look. Why don't we do that? While I do that, let me say hello to Steve. Steve Orpello up in Perth, New York. Let's take a look at it. USC. Can they win 8 games this year? Where are you? Come on. Keep my mouse to work. All right, guys. Bear with me. USC schedule. LSU. We already gave him a loss to James Martin and John DeLong's LSU Tigers. Utah State's a win. Michigan. Michigan's lost a lot. They lost their head coach. They lost 3/4 of the coaching staff. They lost their quarterback. They lost their top running back. All that being said, USC is going to Michigan and losing. I can see them losing to Wisconsin. I'll give them a win at Minnesota, a loss to Penn State, beat Maryland, beat Rutgers, beat Washington, because Washington's in bad shape this year. Jed Fish is a great coach, but I think he's going to lose. I think Nebraska beats them. I think UCLA beats them. I think Notre Dame beats them. I think it's very possible this team goes 5-7 this year. 5-7, very possible. Even if I give them a Wisconsin game at home, that's 6-6. 8-5 would be good for Lincoln this year. James talking about Dabo has to get with the times and use the transfer portal. Again, his rationale is there's nobody good enough to play at Clemson in the portal, and that's nonsense. I think Will Howard, I think there was 5 quarterbacks in the portal better than his guy. Kubler, what's his name? I always say his name wrong. In regards to Lincoln, hire some young and talented defensive coordinator. I don't know who he hired. Alex Grinch is out, which is about 3 years too late. I'm not sure Lincoln Riley's going to be able to save a job. If Lincoln Riley goes 5-7 or 6-6 this year, which to me looks likely, be trouble. USC's had some great defensive teams in the past. They've been putrid. It's been a long time since they had a great defensive team, but you're right. They have a rich history of defense. We got to go back a ways. John McKay, John Robinson, those teams are all great defensively. Pete Carroll's teams were better defensively, I think, than they got credit for. Mr. First Down. Good to have you with us, Mr. First Down. Put a fork in it, Riley's done. Now, when I get these kind of comments, because I don't think, and I welcome you to the show, Mr. First Down. I'm not sure you've been with us before, but state your allegiance so that we know what your agenda is when you say Lincoln Riley's done. When Danny Fuller here is here and we talk about USC, I know damn well he's a big UCLA fan, so we know. Jesus, you did it again, Samuel. I thought I'd seen that before. You're too funny, dude. This has become a big thing on my show, is guys coming in under one name and then popping out and coming back under another name. Paul Spada did it to me Sunday. Well, now we know what your agenda is. You're a Tennessee fan and don't care about ex-Pac-12 teams or anybody outside the SEC. Listen, again, I'm not going to label you, Samuel, and certainly not my good friend James Martin as SEC elitist, because John DeLon relishes the term. I don't use it in a favorable context when I use it. So you had to put the kids down, and after that, you have to change into your Mr. First Down persona. Guys, I got to look quick at the baseball real quick, because I promised a bunch of people we would. Real quick, because we're getting to the super regionals right now. So 2 out of 3 these series are. You got Texas will play Evansville. These series start on Friday. So I think there's some fun teams to watch here, by the way. UConn here in the East is going to play Florida State. Tennessee is going to play Evansville. Speaking of your Volunteers, Mr. First Down, Kentucky will play Oregon State. Georgia plays NC State. I was really rooting for one of the High Point or one of those teams that kind of come out of the regionals here. Bryant or James Madison, get somebody in there. But to me, I watched UConn play, and I was impressed with the way they played. I don't think they can beat Florida State. I'm going to say that Tennessee wins this tournament, and Mr. First Down gets a national championship in baseball. He says he's a sports fan. I like sports and listen to your show and others. And I just think he's done. No, I agree. Listen, I'm not arguing with you. I said I think Lincoln Riley, Ryan Day are under the most pressure of anybody. A couple of notes, too. Evansville beat our good friend Larry Sorensen's Wake Forest team. Larry, former major league pitcher with the Brewers and the A's, a few other teams. Went to school at Michigan. He's been the Wake Forest football and baseball color commentator for quite a while. He comes on our show now and again, and I'm going to actually get Larry on one-on-one with Keith Engle soon. We've had him on to talk about his career, but I would think I'll get him on to talk about the state of baseball soon. Who did Tennessee eliminate to get in there? They were in a group with Ole Miss, Kentucky, Indiana. UConn came from a group of Oral Roberts, Duke, and Oklahoma. Sorry, Alan. Florida State. Yeah, I'm not going to go through all these. I think Clemson, by the way, Florida is going to be an interesting series as well. So, well, I missed a bunch. I'm sorry. I apologize. I missed 8 teams. What a dumbass I am sometimes. Good grief. Virginia, Kansas State play each other. UNC, West Virginia play each other. I knew there was more teams. Clemson and Florida play each other. Texas A&M and Oregon play each other. Texas A&M is probably the favorite here of these teams that are left in my mind, but I still like Mr. First Downs, Tennessee to win here. There you go. And looking quick because I want to get to the women's too because where'd my damn it. Well, here we go. So the women's Final Four is set. Best of 3. I'm sorry. Yeah, the Final Four. The championship. Are we down to the championships? Or see, this thing isn't up to date. Let's see what we got here. June 5th. That's today, right? Yeah. So we got right now. The finals have started. Okay. It's going to be Texas against Oklahoma. Speaking to you at SEC fans, this isn't a matchup for you guys this year, but it would be next year. Texas and Oklahoma facing off for the softball champion. If you go and watch these girls play, guys, they are terrific. The men's baseball has been out of this world. I've watched UConn play every one of their games. I've watched High Point play each one of their games. They unfortunately did not survive. I was rooting for them hard. There's some really good baseball being played here and some really good softball. These women are really good athletes. I get a bad rap knocking women athletes because I say they can't compete at the highest level with men. I mean, I'm sorry. But these are really talented athletes. So you've got tonight, game number 1, which is just underway, Texas and Oklahoma. Tomorrow night, and then game 3, if necessary, would be on Saturday. All these games are at 8 p.m. on ESPN. And all the men's games you can catch on ESPN affiliates as well. If you don't have ESPN Plus, guys, get it. It's worth the money. If you like sports, and I know you guys all like sports, there's so many, especially with football coming and with basketball. There's so many games that you can pull in on ESPN Plus, and it's exciting. You watch all these men's college baseball games for sure. Don't be too hard on myself. It's a lot when it comes to this tournament. It is. There's a lot going on, for crying out loud. I knew when it got to the Super Regional, it's not, I knew there was a lot more than the 8 teams that I read off there. I still, even though Texas A&M ought to be the favorite of these teams left, I like the Rocky Top. How about that? Oh, what else did we want to talk about? I want to talk a little bit about the Hall of Fame nominations. I'll just go through this real quick and give you some of the here's some of the players that are up. Fozell Adams from Michigan State. Monte Ball, great running back from Wisconsin. I'm just going through, so I'm not naming them all, but just some guys that we'll certainly recognize. Greg Carr, great linebacker from Auburn. Mark Carrier, tremendous defensive back out of USC. Speaking of great defensive players, James. Kajana Carter from Penn State. Matt Cavanaugh, great quarterback, won a national championship with Tony Dorsett in the backfield in 1976. Johnny Majors, Mr. First Down, was a coach of that Pittsburgh team. I know you know Johnny Majors. Dallas Clark, Brad Culpepper, Kenneth Davis, DJ Dozer, Willie Galt, Gaston Green, some great names. Marvin Harrison Sr. We just talked about Marvin Harrison Jr. a lot this last year. Wish he was a Patriot. Josh Heupel, quarterback, Oklahoma national championship, current Tennessee coach. Mark Ingram from Alabama. Sebastian Janikowski from Florida State. I don't know if he'll be going in with a ankle bracelet or not. Larry Nidus, Ohio State linebacker. Ryan Leaf, there's a name. Washington State quarterback. I sound like I also feel like I sound like Pete Rozelle here reading off these names. Terrence Metcalf from Mississippi. Herman Moore from Virginia, great college player, great player in the NFL. Kellen Moore, new Philadelphia offensive coordinator, former Boise State, really helped put Boise State on the map, Kellen Moore. Ken Norton Jr., a lot of guys up for this. Larry Sievers, Takeo Spikes, Justin Smith, Sean Taylor, the late Sean Taylor, great defensive back out of Miami, great player in the NFL, died tragically in a shooting, way too young. Peter Warwick, Michael Vick. That's just there's a ton more, guys. Luis Sendejas, place kicker for Arizona State. Coaches. I want to talk a little bit about coaches. Here's your candidates for this year. Larry Blanky, coach at Troy for 13 years. Jim Carlin, West Virginia back in the 60s. Texas Tech, South Carolina in the 70s. Pete Cowett, coached at Austin College, not Boston, and Texas Tech. This is back in the 30s. Larry Coker won a national championship with a loaded Miami team in 2001, his very first year. Then he got fired 5 years later, goes to Texas San Antonio, and I think he had an under 500 record there. But he goes 60-15, and that's important, and I'll get to why in a second. Ralph Frigid from Maryland. Really? Urban Meyer. No argument there. Darryl Rogers, coach with a lot of teams. Fresno State, San Jose State, Michigan State, Arizona State. Coaching the NFL. Nick Saban, shoo-in. Tommy Tuberville, Ole Miss, Auburn, Texas Tech, Cincinnati. You know, and the reason I bring these up, these are all fine coaches. But let me focus on a couple of guys. Larry Coker, Ralph Friedgen, I'm probably saying his name, man. Friedgen. Darryl Rogers, Tommy Tuberville. The others I'll give a pass because they're a long time ago, some of them. The reason I want to bring this up is Pete Carroll's not eligible for the College Football Hall of Fame because he only coached 9 seasons. To be eligible as a coach, you have to have coached 10 seasons at least and had a 600 winning percentage. Pete Carroll, all he did was win at USC. Again, there was a cloud around him when he left. I get it. Won multiple national championships, but he coached 9 years. He's not eligible but Larry Coker is. Larry Coker won one team with a loaded. He took over a loaded team, won that national championship, got fired 5 years later, and had a losing record. After that, with a startup program at UTSA. Ralph Frigid, nice guy, won 2-time Coach of the Year honors in the ACC with Maryland. Never sniffed anything on a nationwide basis. Darryl Rogers, nice coach. Again, Arizona State, Michigan State, never close to the top of the heap. Same with Tommy Tuberville. Mike Leach, by the way, another name. Pete Carroll, Mike Leach, Howard Schnellenberger. Mike Leach has a .596 winning percentage. That's 600. He's not eligible for the College Football Hall of Fame. Howard Schnellenberger put Miami on the map. Sorry to my friend Chuck Foreman. Sorry to Lou Saban and Jim Kelly. Howard Schnellenberger started what became a dynasty in Miami. Jimmy Johnson, Dennis Erickson took over from there. He's not eligible for the Hall of Fame. His winning percentage is below 600, well below 600. But he won one of the most important games in college football history. Pete Carroll not eligible. Who's the other guy? Mike Leach, because he's .596. Mike Leach revolutionized the game of college football with his passing offense that tons of teams are running now. I think they need to kind of look at their criteria here when you're considering, and again, I don't want to take anything away from Larry Coker. And Larry Coker probably is more deserving than Ralph Friedgen or Darryl Rogers or Tommy Tuberville, all good coaches. But we're not considering some of the best coaches because of arbitrary 10-year careers or 600 winning percentage? Makes no sense. Apparently, I'm not resonating with anybody on that topic. That's fun. Mohawks are waiting for some players to finish up their playoff fun. Are they? Do you know of any guys on these? Rick, do you know? And again, by the way, Kenny got me Spagnola's number, and I'm going to reach out to him this week or next week. I guess he's amenable to coming on the one-on-one show. I'd like to have both of them on together. I think that'd be fun to do an hour one-on-one with Keith Engle with those two guys. And for those of you who are watching going, who the hell are these guys? The Mohawks are a collegiate summer league team in Amsterdam, New York. A lot of Division I talent has come through there and played. It's the perfect game league here in the Northeast. They play all over the Northeast. There's a team in Cooperstown and all throughout the Northeast. They play in the Hudson Valley too, I think. Think about the Cape Cod League back in the day, and they used to have a league in Alaska. They've always had these summer collegiate leagues, and it's been a very successful operation, and I'd love to chat with those guys about it. And anyway, if there's anybody you know, Rick, that maybe you don't, but you're saying if there's players that they're waiting on that are still playing in a College World Series, they're going to have another very good season. This is a team that does very well year in and year out in this league, and it's very, very good baseball. I haven't seen a game in quite a few years, but I used to go off to myself. Rick goes to like every game. So anyway, I thought we'd get a little reaction to some of the Hall of Fame news, but I guess not. So we'll get ready to wrap it up here pretty quickly. Unless you guys have a further comments. We've had a pretty good, I think we had a pretty good show tonight talking about what's happening on the field. And again, I'm not chastising anybody but myself for the fact that maybe we have not concentrated enough and we need to do more of it. And we'll try to do that. You know, as long as we have a good turnout and lively debate like we've had tonight, we'll continue to do the show through these this off season, if you will. We'll certainly do it the next couple of weeks until we get through the College World Series in baseball, and so we can talk a little bit about that. But we'll continue to talk college football as long as I don't have to continually rail on the NIL and the transfer portal and pay for play, because I just don't want to talk about it. Again, I feel like I've been too negative, and I need to get myself out of that doldrum when it comes to college sports. And again, I think what I think, I believe what I believe, and I want to still enjoy the games, and I want to focus on what I'm excited about, and that's what we tried to do tonight, and I think we did it very well. Rick says both would be better. I think so too. Keith is quiet, and Brian would balance him off. I think it'd be great, because that way I can talk, Rick, about how they. Now I want to talk to Brian about how this brainchild happened, and you know, and talk a little bit about the history of the team, obviously, and then Brian can certainly, and Keith can talk about that as well. But then we can talk about Keith, and I'd like to talk to him also about, you know, his strategies and how they compare with the way that the professional game is played today, and learn a little about him and his history. I know Danny Fuller mentioned he thought he knew Keith Fuller, and I don't think we're talking about, I'm sorry, he knew Keith Griffin, but I don't think we're talking about the same guy. So I think it would be fun to have them both on, and you know, we bounce off both of them. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So anyway, guys, we're gonna say whoops. We're gonna say whoops. You guys have a great night. I think we had a great show tonight. Thanks for contributing, Samuel, Dean, Alan, Rick, James. Who else is with us tonight? Al. I think I said Alan. Who did I forget? Whoever I forget, I apologize. Steven, Dave Gayette. Great to have you guys with us. And, you know, as long as we may take a hiatus, we may not. We'll see how it goes. We might take a week off here and there if there's just not enough to talk about. But we'll be here at least the next couple of weeks, and then we'll see how we go. Guys, have a great rest of your Wednesday. We'll see you on Friday with Randy Lurch, former Major League Baseball player. And he's got a great story to tell about his rise in Major League Baseball, his fall in Major League Baseball, and his rise back in life in general. And I think it's going to be a great story. So you guys have a great Wednesday. We'll see you Friday morning on TGI Sports Talks 101 with Keith Engle and Randy Lurch. Have a great night, guys. Bye-bye.